Have you ever found yourself feeling just totally drained after talking to someone? Or maybe felt like you're in a relationship where you're just, I don't know, constantly fighting an uphill battle, like taking one step forward, only to slide two steps back? Well, today we're doing a deep dive into exactly that. We're looking at navigating narcissistic abuse and energy vampires
Well,
using the sources you sent over.
yeah, exactly. Our goal here is to really unpack the dynamics of these unhealthy relationships. They can be so subtle sometimes, but the impact is profound. We're going to focus specifically on narcissistic abuse effects and this whole idea of energy vampires. Hopefully pull out some, surprising insights and practical ways for you to recognize these patterns.
Okay, let's get into it.
Yeah.
So one of the first things our sources really hit on is just the sheer emotional stress from narcissistic abuse.
Yeah.
And there's this key idea linked to it, resistance.
And it's fundamental, really. You see individuals with narcissistic traits or what's often termed cluster B personalities, they consistently resist taking any real responsibility.
For their own actions in the relationship.
So their contributions to the relationship, yeah. It's not just like forgetting, it's an act of resistance, maybe projection, gaslighting, you name it. And that refusal, that's often why the relationship stays so unhealthy, so tense. It just doesn't change because one party simply won't acknowledge their role. It keeps the tension incredibly high.
Right, that makes sense. But here's something I found really counterintuitive in the material. You'd think going no contact would bring immediate relief, right? You could cut off the source of the stress. But the sources actually say stress often spikes right after going no contact. It gets worse before it gets better.
Yeah, that's a really important point. And look, it's not meant to discourage anyone from going no contact. Absolutely not. It's more about being prepared. It's based on a lot of shared experiences, testimonies. That initial spike, it can feel like a kind of withdrawal almost.
A withdrawal.
Well, yeah, your system, even though it was painful, got used to that chaos, that specific dynamic. And suddenly removing it, while ultimately healthy, can feel really disorienting, like a psychological detox, maybe. So it's actually quite common for that stress to rise temporarily before it settles down. It's part of the process for many people.
Okay, so that's if you do manage to go no contact. But what about when you're still in it? The sources talk about how staying creates this hostile environment.
Oh, absolutely. If you're trying to, say, build up your own support system, get healthier, but you're still in that unhealthy relationship, especially living with a narcissist, it almost guarantees increased emotional stress. You'll feel drained. It's pretty much a given that stress doesn't just increase, it becomes this like constant cycle.
And it's not just one kind of hostility, is it? The sources mention different types, emotionally hostile, spiritually hostile, psychologically hostile, all under that hostile environment umbrella.
Exactly. And this ties into another concept they bring up, energy transference.
Energy transfers, what does that mean
Yeah.
practically?
Well, it's described as something involuntary. It just happens naturally when people share space, share a relationship. It's not like you choose to transfer energy. But in a hostile environment, this transference compounds the negativity emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. It directly impacts what some call your energy body, your overall vitality, your mental resilience. And that's what leads to that feeling of being constantly drained, just depleted.
Okay, so that explains why, if you're living in that kind of environment, dealing with all the, well, the sources call it shenanigans and abusive tactics,
Right.
why trying to work on yourself feels like that one step forward, two steps back thing. It's hard to make progress because the core relationship itself lacks, what was the word?
Resonance, yeah. There's no positive alignment, no genuine give and take. It's just a constant drain pulling you back down.
So given how difficult that is, another strategy sometimes discussed is the gray rock method. What's the thinking behind that?
Right, gray rock. The basic idea is you try to get the narcissist, the bully, as one source puts it, to look elsewhere for their source supply and fuel.
How? By being boring.
Essentially, yes. You make yourself as uninteresting, as unresponsive as, well, a gray rock. You stop giving them the emotional reaction they feed off.
Okay. And the sources seem to say this is most useful when you haven't gone no contact, right? Like when you have to interact. The main example was sharing custody of kids with a narcissist even after the relationship's over.
That's a prime example, yeah. Because contact is unavoidable. But it also applies in other situations where you haven't chosen full no contact. Maybe you still accept emails or phone calls, or perhaps there's still some kind of engagement for financial reasons, emotional entanglement, even sexual means, as the sources mention. The key is the connection isn't fully severed and the narcissist is still trying to get something from you. So you have to apply gray rock consistently, repeatedly. It takes effort.
It sounds exhausting, honestly, having to constantly monitor yourself to not react.
It can be, definitely.
But just to be clear, if you have successfully gone full no contact, there's no point in gray rocking anymore.
Nope. No purpose then. The goal is already achieved.
Which leads us back to no contact itself. We talked about the stress spike, but what does it really mean in practice?
It means exactly what it sounds like. No contact. Zero. No calls, no emails, blocking on social media, no indirect messages through others. Nothing. And look, it is tough, especially if it's family or if you're still, in your feelings about the person. It can feel harsh, even cruel sometimes.
But the sources suggest there's a bigger picture.
Yeah. They emphasize that once you stop idealizing the person or the relationship, once you really see it clearly for the damage it caused, going no contact often emerges as genuinely the best path forward for your own healing, your own peace.
Okay. Let's shift gears slightly then. Let's talk about energy vampires. Who exactly fits this description? What do they do?
Right, energy vampires. The term refers to people who basically feed off the life force of others. They specifically target empaths or highly sensitive people. And it's crucial, as one source puts it, you haven't been chosen, you've been targeted. They zero in on that empathy.
How do they do that? Is it obvious?
Often not at first. They can be incredibly captivating, charismatic even. They play into the empath's existing wounds, maybe unmet needs. They tell you exactly what you've always been longing to hear. Things like,
oh, like the examples given, where have you been all my life? Or you're such an amazing listener, doctor, helper.
Exactly. Or, thank God I found you. You're the only one who understands me. Or the only one who can help me. It's very intense, very flattering initially.
And empaths, because they are empathetic, might see these people as projects. Like fixer-uppers.
That's a common perception, yes. The empath thinks, oh, this person is wounded, I can help them heal.
But the sources say their true nature is something else entirely. They're identified as cluster B personality disordered individuals.
Correct. That's the clinical underpinning. This includes several types. Sociopaths, antisocial personalities, psychopaths. And there's that startling statistic. 1 in 25 people is a real psychopath.
Wow. 1 in 25.
Yeah. And most aren't, serial killers like in the movies. They often operate under the radar, maybe running big companies. They function without a conscience. It also includes everyday narcissists, people with narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and histrionic personality disorder.
So quite a range. And what kinds of behaviors are typical?
Well, things like being overly dramatic or maybe antisocial tendencies, binge drinking can be common, that compelling charm we mentioned, but also darker things like threatening self-injury or suicide to manipulate, and definitely love bombing, that intense over-the-top affection at the start.
That sounds like a lot of manipulation tactics.
Yeah.
So what's the root cause? Is it brain chemistry or...
Yeah. The sources emphasize it's fundamentally a character disorder, not just a biochemical problem that medication can easily fix. Their moral compass doesn't exist or is severely warped. And crucially, they often know exactly what they're doing. This isn't always about someone who's lost touch with reality. It's often calculated exploitation.
Okay. We've really unpacked a lot today, from the surprising stress spike of going no contact to the way hostile environments drain you through energy transference, and now unmasking these energy vampires. It's heavy stuff, but also, I think, really clarifying.
It is, and it leads to a really important question for you, the listener, to consider. Given everything we've discussed, how these individuals operate, how they impact people, what does it truly mean for you to safeguard your own well-being, your emotional, your spiritual, your psychological health day to day? How might recognizing these patterns, maybe even in subtle ways, empower you to build stronger boundaries, healthier spaces, and really protect that vital energy we talked about?
That's definitely something powerful to reflect on. We really encourage you to think more about these dynamics and what protecting your own peace and progress looks like for you.
Emotional stress is one effect of narcissistic abuse. So going no contact can be emotionally stressful. The sense of obligation and responsibility to continue to emotionally invest in an unhealthy relationship can become very strong at times. One thing that is not as noticeable is how the narcissistic or cluster B personality is usually resistant, keyword resistant, to taking responsibility for his or her contribution to the relationship, which is one of the main reasons for the relationship remaining unhealthy and unchanged. What happens when a person is in a state of resistance? he or she can become stagnant. And if they are involved in a relationship with others, those individuals will feel that tension. So resistant is a key word because this is often the case. The unhealthy relationship remains unchanged because there are certain people, such as a cluster B personality, that is in a state of resistance to taking responsibility for his or her contribution to the relationship. So therefore, the tension remains high in the relationship. Okay, so overall, here's your emotional stress. And right after going no contact, one may think that it will decrease, but no. Right after going no contact, emotional stress tends to spike or increase. Now, I'm not saying this to discourage anyone, just in case you're contemplating going no contact. But just want to forewarn you, this has been my experience, and I have interacted with others and heard their testimonies of having similar experiences, such as emotional stress spiking right after going no contact. Okay, so I think this tends to be a common case here. When people go no contact, emotional stress will spike up before it goes down or levels off. Okay, so just want to forewarn you. Another effect of narcissistic abuse is a hostile environment, or the effects of a hostile environment. Okay, so if a person chooses to attempt to work his or her support base while remaining, that's a key word, maintaining, okay, or staying in the relationship, the unhealthy relationship, it will more than likely be emotionally stressful and become draining over time. Case in point, you live with a narcissist. It's going to be a hostile environment. So if a person is choosing to work his or her support base while maintaining the unhealthy relationship or remaining in the hostile environment, absolutely, the emotional stress will increase. It's just a given, folks. It's going to increase. The emotional stress is going to be there. And not only that, the person may feel drained. And this is going to repeat over and over because they're still in an unhealthy relationship with the cluster B personality or the narcissist. Therefore, they are in a hostile environment every day. An emotionally hostile environment usually has long-lasting effects on a person. Okay, so let's look at the various types of hostility here. Emotionally hostile, spiritually hostile, psychologically hostile. All of this is right up under the umbrella of a hostile environment. Because while we're involved with the cluster B personality and or the narcissist, what's going on is that we're sharing space with him or her. Okay? Many times we're sharing space. And when we're sharing space and there's a thing called energy transference that takes place. See, energy transference is something that's involuntary. It happens or occurs naturally between individuals when they are engaged. I don't mean just getting ready to get married, but I mean just they're in a relationship with each other. Okay, so the involuntary occurrence of the energy transference is also what's going to compound or add to the hostile environment on a emotional level, spiritual level, and a psychological level. And the energy body will be affected as well. This is often why we feel drained over time. Okay? So when you're in that hostile environment with the person and you are just experiencing all of the abusive tactics from the narcissist or the cluster B personality, yes, you're going to be under a lot of emotional stress. So as you work your support base, it's going to seem like you're not getting anywhere. Because actually, in a sense, it's like taking one step forward and taking 2 steps back. I'll say that again. It is like taking 1 step forward in your support base. As you work that support base, on one hand, you may feel like you're making progress, so you take 1 step forward. However, because you live in a hostile environment with the cluster B personality, it will feel like and seem like you're taking 2 steps back. Been there and done that, folks. I've experienced this. I did a few videos on resonance. It's very important, actually, when you have relationships with others, that there's some resonance. So while you're living in a hostile environment, you're going to be affected emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically. And your energy body will probably feel drained. Okay? So this is very important to face this, especially when we are working a support base, okay? With all of the shenanigans and all of the abusive tactics that the narcissist is hurling at you on a daily basis, how can you really make progress? How can you really move forward in your life as you attempt to work your support base? It's going to be very, very difficult, adding on to the emotional stress. Confusion on whether or not to apply the gray rock method. This is another effect of narcissistic abuse. The gray rock method is usually more effective when the situation is that you have or have had a romantic relationship with the person and you share custody of your children with him or her. When you apply the gray rock method, the best situation, whereas it will be more effective or most effective, is when you're in a situation where you share custody with the narcissist. You share your children together. You have custody, shared custody, or the cluster B personality. Let's just even say that the romantic relationship is over. Well, you still have children that you both have custody of. So the gray rock method would be most effective when applied to that situation. Why? Because you are not in the no contact category. Here's another situation whereas you haven't gone no contact with the narcissist. Say you don't have children. However, you will still accept emails. You still accept phone calls from this so-called ex. Okay? Are they really an ex? Well, emotionally, maybe not, because you're still communicating with him or her. You may still see that person every now and then. Okay? And let's get real. You might even see that person for a booty call. Let's just, okay? Hey, let's just go ahead and keep it real. You may even still be in contact with that person for sexual means, financial means, emotional means, okay? Whatever the case may be. The bottom line is you haven't gone no contact. So the gray rock method will be effective more than likely if you apply it to that situation. But I think it is most effective when you have custody, shared custody of children with the narcissist or the cluster B personality. That's my opinion. So the gray rock method is for people who have not gone no contact. There isn't any purpose for applying the gray rock method if the relationship has ended or you have chosen to go no contact. One purpose of the gray rock method is an attempt to get the bully to avert his or her attention for source supply and fuel elsewhere. As the relationships continue with the bully or narcissist, the gray rock method will need to be applied repeatedly, mainly because the relationship is not over. See, going no contact means just that. No contact. Now, this is tough for a lot of us, especially when we are still in our feelings, and especially when we are dealing with family members who may have a cluster B personality or a narcissistic personality. It's going to be very tough to let go. And it may even seem to be harsh to go no contact. However, when you begin to really look at the bigger picture and stop idealizing, you're going to see how really going no contact may be your best option.
What is an energy vampire? Energy vampires are people who feed off of the life force of others. They do this by targeting empaths or highly sensitive people. I like to say, you haven't been chosen, you've been targeted, but they're often so charismatic. Oh, he's paying attention to me, he likes me. And I was not the popular kid in 8th grade. And now this person sees that you will be providing them energy, and they just tell you how wonderful you are. They play right into the wounds of the empath and tell you what you've always been longing to hear. Oh, where have you been all my life? You are such a good doctor. Thank God I found you. You're the only one who can help me. And that little part of you goes, oh, I can help. Anyway, energy vampires are often what empaths consider fixer-uppers, but they're really cluster B personality disordered individuals. And that includes sociopaths, antisocial people, psychopaths. That's 1 in 25 people is a real psychopath. Okay, those are people with no conscience. When we hear the term psychopath, we think psychopathic killer. Most are not. They're operating under the radar and they're running major corporations. Then there are the everyday narcissists, narcissistic personality disorder, and then borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder. And the types of behaviors that these energy vampires engage in are overly dramatic or antisocial, binge drinking sometimes, compellingly charming, they threaten self-injury or suicide, or they love bomb you. They do not have a biochemical problem. They have a character disorder. Their moral compass doesn't exist, and that's what you need to know. And they often know exactly what they're doing.